hey guys.
Hello.
So, welcome to another episode of the Context Podcast. And I think today I've Kyle and Brian here with me because we've got some pretty interesting things that we want to talk about the current and maybe some future releases for Automatic, the most amazing FileMaker developer and hosting platform by us, Proof. Right. So, Kyle, Brian, what's new? What's shaking? What cool things do we have to talk about today?
Yeah, so the Automatic Console has been focusing a lot on monitoring and giving developers tools to figure out what's going on in their server, what might be going wrong, and to pinpoint issues both on the server and in your solution for how to make things work faster and work better. So the big one is the TopCallStats tool. So it is a tool that lets you grab the top call stats from your server or upload one if you don't want to connect your server to the console and do a bunch of manipulation of the log, figuring out what things take the longest, and it lets you upload XMLs so you can map those unreadable table and field IDs to things that actually make sense to you and let you hunt down problems.
Wait. So let me get this right. I've seen this demo before, but I just want to make sure that I understand what we're saying here. So right now, is it out? I think it's out, right? I think we've
it's live.
it. So the idea here is that if you have a FileMaker database hosted on Automatic today, you can see, is it in real time? The performance of that solution using TopCallStats log that's being generated by the server.
Yeah, I mean it's not quite real time, but it's pretty close.
Near real time is what I would say, because it's doing some magic in the background to kind of
right. You can pull the log up to current time. Yeah.
Oh, that's freaking cool. Can we take a look? Do you have it?
Sure. Here, let me share my screen.
So as you were doing that, so Brian, maybe help me frame this here, because before the old way of doing this was kind of painful, right? Because you had to export. You have to turn it on first and foremost, right? TopCallStats on your server if it's not already on, and then what? You have to export that TopCallStats log, and then go find it in the folder where it's exported. And then you got to grab it, and then what? I think maybe
then you have to pull it through like FM perception to try to map IDs and figure out what's going on. And
right. And it was very cool that you could do it with FM perception, that you could pull it in, and if you map it to your DDR, or you can kind of see how those IDs and objects actually translate. But there's a lot of different steps, right, to even get that done.
To do that, yeah, and most of the time you just try to look at the logs and maybe do a quick analysis to figure out. But the logs themselves are just unreadable for the most part.
Right.
You know, something's happening in a file, in a table that has an ID of 1, 2, 3, but you don't know what table that is or what fields it's referencing.
Kyle is showing that now. So yeah, this is the output that we get from the logs.
So see, I have big file, table 148, containers 35.
Right.
Very useful.
And you have no idea what table 148 is.
Right.
It could be
no idea what that is.
Yeah. Customers, it could be underscore or something, it could be whatever, right? Okay, cool. So yeah, it wasn't a great experience before, just because of like the disconnection between the server logs and the ingestion process you got to go through to get to that. And I think what we've gotten this down to where it's basically one click or no clicks.
Yeah. So if you're in the log here, you can click this in the TopCallStats log or in the TopCallStats, any of the rotated ones. You can just click analyze, and that will take you over to the TopCallStats viewer with the log preloaded for you. So yeah, this is the viewer. You can view it by like the operation type, which is the operation listed in the TopCallStats log, or you can view a timestamp based one, which is over time, what things are happening and how long are they taking. So you see all that bucketed. They're bucketed by like the length of the query. And then you can filter and sort and say, oh, show me everything that happens over a second, which I have nothing that is over a second long, which is good. But If I say, 10 to 100 milliseconds, then that'll show me this graph, and I can go back to the operation, and then that'll show me only things in that bucket. You'll also see down here, we have the full log, so you can sort and filter and say, for the total elapsed, show me things that are, greater than 1 second or whatever.
So we're going to be able to pinpoint, like say that if you go back to, there was that list of slow operations under the 10 to 100 millisecond range. And I can go up to the top and say, hey, the perform scripts part, just go back to the very, very top there for a second. So perform script on server operations are maybe a thing I want to pay attention to because that seems to be the most costly.
They're generally taking a while. Yeah, and you can also, if you don't want to filter it by this, you can just come down here and sort it by the elapsed time and say, oh, this big file, I have a find that's taking 200 milliseconds.
Great. This is freaking cool. I think it's going to save a lot of time. So what was the inspiration for doing this? I know it was kind of a bit of a skunkworks before, right, Brian? What's
Yeah, so Angela had brought up TopCallStats and how it was just unreadable, and it's like it'd be nice just to see a graph and the table below with the logs to see what's going on and kind of get a visual of everything. And then from there it kind of morphed where it was like, well, it'd be nice to see a translation of what these table and field IDs are, which then turned into it'd be nice to see more data about what's going on in the file, which is where that inspect button comes into play.
All right.
Which will give you more.
Speaking of that, we showed off the log parsing, but we can show off the XML a little bit too. So you can upload your own XMLs and upload your own log, but if your server is connected to the Cloud Console, you can also just pull them. So I'm gonna pull only this better auth test one. This one will. So using AutoFMS, using AutoFMS, this can grab an XML from the server and download it to your browser, and then parse it out. So you'll see now where earlier it had like unreadable table IDs, now it has actual values. This one probably got deleted or something, so it doesn't exist anymore. But so now you can say, oh, this commit records that takes longer than all my other ones is on the user table, right? And then you can say, I wonder what's going on that table. Let's inspect it. And you can get like a basic functionality for
That's awesome.
This table, what fields are in it, what table occurrences are using it, what layouts are using it.
Right.
You can navigate through your whole file and see a full list of tables and layouts and scripts, and
that's awesome.
See the themes that are used.
Apex Blue. Oh my goodness.
Apex Blue. Yeah. And you can jump up and down in here and see which layouts use which themes.
That's amazing. So do we have to load up the XML each time you do this, or does it keep the cache in?
Yeah, so if you're pulling it from the server, it makes a new XML every time. You can, when you pull from the server, choose to download it. So you can just say, grab me the XML and also put it on my computer. So this will load it into the TopCallStats viewer and also download it. So the next time you come in, you can just drag and drop it right in there. But there is no cache just in case you're changing stuff.
So when you come back, it will basically start as if
it'll start fresh. If
I press, and then you just got to pull.
If I reset.
Well, that's cool.
Pull and it'll do it all again.
So maybe in some future that will be automated too. You can say, hey, get XML from an automatic server or AutoFMS server and be done, right?
Right.
Future version. But
well, I mean, you can. Yeah, so you can already pull it from but it doesn't include ones that are already there. So you can also do the same thing with the log. So I can pull the log and download it, which you can see downloaded it to my computer, and then I can pull from the server and download it. That will generate an XML. Pull it, and it really wants me to know I should change my password for that file. And then if I reset here, right, I'll be able to grab these two files from my computer, and you can just drag and drop all of the files onto this first You can just drag and drop all the files onto this first entry. Sorry, my files got named something weird because I already had these files downloaded from a different demo. So you can just drag and drop everything, and then it just does it all at once. So.
No, this is very cool. I recall as we were talking about this that one of the things that really motivated us to do this was, helping hosting customers with sort of performance questions on databases, right? And so we were seeing a lot of my files are slow, or something's going on, something's happening with my scripts, and it was just hard to support. So, how has this helped, if anything? Something you can speak to, Brian or Kyle?
I know we're working on additional features that tie into other logs as well, so we can see server performance at the time, and then pulling in eventually additional logs that will tell us events that were happening through the event log, access logs, additional data that will help give a bigger picture of what's going on during that time period where we're seeing the performance hits.
But we are actively using this even for ourselves, right? For support. I mean, it sounds like that's already been
correct. Yes,
making a big difference. Yeah. So TopCallStats looks like it's we dropped it. It's going to be a pretty awesome feature, and I think we've got a couple more new things that are on the way, right, Kyle? You want to talk a little bit about that? And Brian.
So the TopCallStats is useful for seeing what's taking a long time, and you can kind of pinpoint what parts of your solution might be taking a while, but it's a little more difficult to figure out why that's happening. So oftentimes a true analysis of the TopCallStats requires looking at how many connected clients there might be and what's going on the server, and if there's some schedule running that's got a high server load going on. So we're currently working on getting you able to see, for automatic servers, being able to see monitoring stats. So being able to see what the CPU load is and see how many connected clients there are and all those kinds of things. And then for every server connected to the Cloud Console, being able to pull other logs in and filter them to the same time range. So if you're looking at a TopCallStats and you look at a TopCallStats for a full day, right, you can at the same time see the event log for that day, or the stats log from FileMaker, and kind of map periods of time in the TopCallStats to other logs and see what's going on.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. That seems like a pretty cool thing. When are we thinking that's going to ship? I know we're working through some final things on that.
Hopefully next week. Soon is the goal. So
awesome. I want to go back to TopCallStats a little bit and kind of zoom out. We've got a few minutes here. I'm actually kind of curious, and maybe it's worth sharing with listeners. Like, what was our process in developing this? I know Brian, you were involved, and then it escalated and whatnot. And maybe it's worth just like talking a little bit about that process.
Yeah. So I took Angelo's kind of thoughts and decided to run with it. So I ended up using Cursor and one of the Sonnet LLMs to start working through the issue and generating, the repository and the initial code base, and slowly work through building out the chart and the table below, and then slowly kind of added on additional features like the inspect button and then the modals for that. And once I got it to a point where we needed some more performance, enhancements and tying it into the console, that's when I kind of stepped back and handed it over to Kyle to review and start integrating with the console.
Yeah, I think two things jump out on that, and it's worth making explicit. I think at Proof we've been been using AI for both research, R&D, and really across our entire workflows and work, and especially on the product and development side of things. I think that's AI and agentic engineering has been deeply embedded now in the way we do things, right? Kyle, I think you live in Cursor probably most of the days.
Cloud all day, every day.
Cloud all day, every day. I live in cloud all day, every day. And I think what's interesting about the story is that, there was a design idea, there was a problem that we needed to solve, and even the prototyping and sort of investigation exploratory aspect, well, we've spun up as a agentic process, right? So you did a couple of spikes, Brian, on this process. You kind of fleshed out what the UI was supposed to be, and you work with AI to develop it, and then at some point we develop a spec. It's like, this is the idea, this is the working prototype, and now how does it fit into Automatic? And then I think that's when quote unquote product was brought in. You were brought in, Kyle, to really start engaging in that and then taking that forward, right? Does that my narrative here? Like, does that align with what actually happened? And I don't want to tell a happy past story. I just want to share with listeners how we do things at Proof.
I'd say that's pretty accurate.
Were there?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm curious. Like, so, moving from a non-agentic AI development posture to something that's so fully deeply ingrained in what we do. I mean, what would you say is different like now in how we build, and how we do things?
I think generally we're faster. I think there's a much higher, there's a much larger need for like good solid testing and good solid harnesses for these things. Whereas before we weren't slow, but we were relatively slow compared to where we are now. But a lot of the stuff was being handwritten and hand tested, and things are still being hand tested, but less handwritten. And therefore the testing, like automated testing, was important, but like less crucial. Whereas now everything has to be tested, because if something touches a piece of code that it shouldn't have and we don't catch it in the development process, it's much more important. So there's the testing part, and that part's much more important now. I'll also say that the feedback loop is much faster. So instead of it being somebody has a feature request in the community, I put it into a list, and a month and a half later I look at it, I can say, oh, someone has a feature request in the community. I can grab that URL, I can plug it in and say, hey, this feature request came in. Let's make a plan to do it, Right. And it can go read that feature request, pull it down, put in, like, figure out what in the code base needs to change, ask some clarifying questions about, does it mean this feature over here or this feature over here? All that kind of thing. And you can direct it and get it going where you need to, and, add some taste on top of it into like they requested this, but I think the helpful thing would be really doing that, what they requested, with a little extra or a little less, or so there's definitely still that human in the loop element, where it's sometimes features just don't really make sense for what we're building, or sometimes features make sense but would make sense slightly different. So the human part's still very important. It's not just like a direct feedback.
Yeah, it seems to me that I think this lines up really well with my experience, which is that we're sort of moving up a level of abstraction. It doesn't, we can't abdicate the business of actually understanding what we're trying to do, right? I mean, I don't think you can write good tests without knowing why you're writing good tests and what you're trying to guard against. And so it's a little bit weird. Like, it's like, before, a lot of things were just felt like, God, this is expensive to do, and maybe we have to cut corners because of time and budget and whatnot. And now it's like, okay, well, that stuff is not so expensive anymore because we can get to it first, and the actual spitting out the code part is not the thing that's the most consuming. So you're spending all your times on harnesses and scaffolding and making sure the loops actually run, and you got feedback loops, and that's the agentic part of this that's, I think, really interesting, right? And obviously it doesn't, that's not even talking about figuring out which problem to solve and how we want to solve it, right? Like, do we export an XML? Do we just pull it directly from the server? You know, how do we connect these pieces? So I think there's a lot more design involved, which I'm really excited about. I think it's a move us into a much more user-driven, user-centric product organization.
Yeah. I do find it a lot of the time the design is the thing that takes the longest now. Whereas before it was like, I want to add a feature. You'd like, in the process of researching what you would need to add where, you'd just start developing it because you're already there. Right. You know what you need to do there. But there was no full research at the beginning to see what all the different pieces were and how they were going to interact and all that kind of thing. And with a full stack application like the Cloud Console or like AutoFMS, which I also develop, those things, having the full stack in one repo lets you kind of manage the full feature at once and figure out what everything needs and kind of handle it on an all fell swoop. So
I don't know if this jives with your experience, but I'm finding that design's also a lot less precious, and so I can take a lot more whacks at things, you know.
Yeah.
Like before it'd be like, I invested all this time. Like I don't know. I mean, like, you know, I don't want to change that.
It's not even. I also find the designs are less precious. The actual generated code is less precious.
Right.
Like if you generated a thing and you try it out and you're like, nah, I don't like this.
Right.
You just throw it out. It took you, you know, it didn't take you that long. It took you about as long as it would have taken to, you know, sit down and think through it and develop half the feature in the first place. Right. But now you've got a full working feature and you're like, man, this doesn't really make sense. Never mind. And there's no like, I worked on this for 2 weeks. We have to use it kind of situation.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it's like, it's not even that we are moving faster net. Like, you know, we may have gotten to the same quote unquote product in the same time span, but certainly we're covering a lot more territory and we're much more rigorous in the things that go into the final product. You know?
Yeah. And I think it makes it more, it makes it easier to add the things that would have been justifiable not to add before.
Right.
So, for example, like with the new monitoring tab in the Cloud Console, in like probably next week when these features get released, we're adding the same log viewer thing we're adding to the TopCallStats, where it lets you, like, you say, show me the monitoring for the last hour. You can pull in whatever log you want for the last hour, right? And that before would have taken probably a few hours to build. And now it's like, hey, grab me this stuff from over here and plug it all into this screen and make it work like this. And it goes and does it, right?
Yeah.
And that's a feature that wouldn't have been hard for me to make before using AI, but now it makes it almost trivial to make because I've already written all of the code to do all of those things. I just haven't plugged them all in the right place.
Yeah, it seems to me that, and maybe Brian, you can speak to this too, like I'm finding certainly more and more lately that judgment about what not to do is becoming really valuable because it's so easy to just throw stuff in and say, I've shipped something of value when it's not really necessarily true.
Yeah, absolutely. I found a lot of times too, just with the design phase, like I'm more of a logical thinker than an actual like designing either UI or big, huge planning of things. So I found that I can use, the LLMs to help me work through that process and guide those questions.
100%.
That then helps to just build up the thing that I'm trying to get to. And, I've had a lot of fun doing it, working on personal projects too, that, it started from nothing and just said, I want to build this or build an app and go walk me through the design phase first. And, it asked me questions like, what's your elevator pitch? What's the app for? What problem are you solving? And then it just works you through. And I did that on a project and the UI came out horrible. Like, I mean, I haven't seen I could actually design a UI that's better than that, which just says a lot. So, uh, so then I was like, okay, well, let's do a UI design phase, and we're going to talk through how I want this to look, and maybe some of the things I like and dislike. I'll upload some screenshots of those, and you can then go ahead and figure out what this actually needs to be. And I went and did it, and then I'm like, hey, you got the UI right. Now let's start working on the next chunk that we got to work on. So
this is the way. This is the way. Well, I'm really excited to see both the features we're dropping. I think TopCallStats and the ability to kind of get that directly in the console. I think that's really huge. And I know we've got many more cool things that we're lining up here. Deciding what not to do, I think is the trick. So I think we got to pay attention to it. But also, just as a cap here. This is a really exciting time for us at Proof. I think we're fully engaged and embracing this agentic process of engineering and product development. It is a skill, though. I think, Brian, you touch on a lot of things that make it work well, which is like the kind of joke internally, the proof way, which is to understand design first, and then like we had a manual way of doing that before, which is like, oh, we've got to do that for design, then then ship and iterate and do all that, and just worked out that agents like that, and it's really helpful with the way we do things. So that part, I think, is an awesome thing to see. All right. Well, thank you both for joining me here, and we look forward to the next time we talk about this. Right, we've got more coming, and we'll be sharing it as soon as we can. Cheers, everybody.
Thanks.